I'm sitting on the gym floor, looking up at the ceiling. I hear Baby You're a Firework from Katy Perry coming in over the loudspeakers. And I thought, this is the song that I'm going to listen to while I die. This is all over. That panic attack where I thought my life was ending, that was actually right. My old life was ending. My life that I had focused on becoming a lawyer, from pleasing everybody else, from doing what everybody else wanted me to do with my life. That version of me had to die in order for me to figure out who I really am and what I really like to do. And so in this video, I'm gonna break down why I pursued law, what the job was actually like, what led to the panic attack, and the truth about prestigious careers that no one talks about. In order to understand why I ended up feeling so trapped in law, we actually have to go back to the very beginning. Growing up, I was the youngest of 5 in a family of lawyers, and so I always grew up watching my parents and my older siblings practice law, and I always felt like that will be the most noble thing that I could possibly do. But as the baby of the family, I wanted to prove something to them. I wanted to prove that I could actually be a better lawyer than they could be, and the way that I wanted to do that was going to the best school that I could possibly get into and getting into the best law firms that I could possibly get into. And so even from a very young age, I never really wanted to practice law because I like the work of practicing law. I only wanted to do it because I wanted to prove to everybody else that I was smart, that I was capable, and that I could win at their game. And so I always thought of law as winning at someone else's game instead of just feeling confident and secure within myself to win at my own game what I wanted to do. I never even thought about whether practicing law was what I wanted to do. I always thought about practicing law as the noun, the thing that I wanted, the title that would bring me prestige and to make me look impressive to everybody else. And I never thought of it in terms of the verb, the actual work that you do as a lawyer. Even when I was in college, I went and I did an internship with the litigator. And looking back, I can remember how much I didn't actually like the work that I was doing, but it never even crossed my mind that not liking the work was an indicator that I shouldn't go and continue down the path, because I just saw everything that the lawyer had. I saw the car that he was driving, the house that he had, that everyone else thought that he was smart and they wanted to come to him for advice. I looked at all of those external things as the indicators that practicing law would be the thing that I should do, instead of focusing on the work of practicing law. Even when I was in college, the work that I did to practice law was printing papers out, doing research, all of this stuff that I didn't actually really enjoy, but I was just too young to trust my own intuition that I was heading down the wrong path. And so I got this obsession that if I just did well enough on the LSAT, the law school admissions test, which is the test that gets you admission into some of the best law schools in the country, my obsession was if I can just continue to climb up the hierarchy of law, if I could get into the best school possible and get into the best law firm possible, that will be enough to make me enjoy it. If I get enough of the accolades, then it will make the work worth doing. And so I pursued that to the utmost. The first school that I got into was Emory, which at the time was ranked as the 22nd best law school. And I remember my first week at Emory, I went and I sat down with a group of the cohort of 1L students that I was starting school with. We were sitting with my professor that would ultimately be the professor of civil procedure, which is this very boring area of law where you learn the procedural rules on how to sue people and how to start lawsuits with people. And we were sitting around the table and the professor made this joke, a civil procedure joke. And all of the students around me thought that it was hilarious. They're kind of brown-nosing the professor. I remember realizing how not funny I thought the joke was and how hilarious everyone else thought the joke was. And it was this moment of like, I am in the wrong place. I need to go somewhere else. And at the time, the way that I thought that I would do that is I needed to transfer law schools and get to the best law school possible. I thought, these aren't my people at this law school. Maybe I just need to go to a better law school. And so my new obsession became transferring law schools. Again, every step of the way, it was about me trying to go up the hierarchy as much as I possibly could. And that if I could just get to the next rung of the ladder, then maybe I would enjoy it more. And so at Emory, I became obsessed with studying. I would study for 14, 15 hours a day. I knew that in order to transfer, I needed to become one of the top students at a very good law school, and it was going to be very competitive. And at the end of it, I ultimately became the 7th best student at Emory out of a class of about 350. And that gave me the opportunity to transfer to the University of Chicago. So I went from the 22nd best law school to the 3rd best law school. And then at the University of Chicago, I got there and I decided that I needed to go to the best law firm possible. Again, every single step of the way, I was always one ladder rung away from happiness. And I just wasn't paying attention to the fact that the work and my colleagues, the people that I was around, I just didn't enjoy them. But I just kept thinking that if I just climb the ladder one more step, that I'll get there. And so that all came to a head. In law school, they do this thing called on-campus interviews, which is where the best best law firms come and they interview the best law students. That's how you get recruited to go to the law firm that you're supposed to go to. So my dream job was this law firm called Skadden Arps, which is one of the best couple law firms in the area of mergers and acquisitions, big buying and selling of companies. And I thought that's really what I wanted to do. And so when I got the offer to go and work at Skadden Arps, I was ecstatic. I was like, finally, I've made it. Finally, no more climbing. Finally, no more chasing the next arrival point on the next money mountain that I need to pursue. This is going to be the thing where I finally make it. I moved my wife and my daughter to New York City for the 3-month internship from between my second and my third law school year. And I had always pictured Skadden to be this place, kind of like Suits, if you've ever watched the Suits TV show, where you have these people, these sexy people in sexy clothes talking about sexy ideas and practicing law in a sexy way. And the first week that I was there at Skadden Arps, on the Friday, my first Friday there, one of the big partners in the mergers and acquisitions group came to my office and he said, hey, I need you to do this assignment and I need this on my desk by Monday, 8 a.m. And I looked at my watch and it was Friday at 6. And I'm like, how am I supposed to get this to you by Monday at 8 a.m.? And I think he could tell that I was confused at what he was saying. And so just to put a fine point on it, he's like, you're going to need to work through the weekend in order to get this on my desk by Monday, 8 a.m., but it'll be fine and just do the best that you can. And I barely understood the words that he was saying in terms of what I actually needed to do for the project, but he was like, just do the best that you can and we'll see what you come up with by Monday at 8 a.m. And so when he gave me that assignment, I realized something because I called my wife and I told her that I was going to need to work through the night. And every day before that, I would always leave at 5 p.m. and I would go to a party or we would go and watch a baseball game or a sporting event. We were doing all these recruiting events. And so I'd always leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and not think about the law firm until the next morning at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. But once he gave me an assignment where I had to stay through the night and work basically nonstop from Friday night until Monday morning, when I was there at the office at 2 a.m. and I realized that all of the associates that I had said goodbye to at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that they were still there working. And then when I would go and I would get food and I would come back and it would be 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning and all of the true associates, the people that actually worked there at the law firm, not just the recruits, they were all still there working. I realized that what I had thought working at one of the best law firms in the country was going to feel and look like was very different. The reality of that life was very different than how I had fantasized it to be. And so I realized again that I had made a mistake of thinking that the next rung up the ladder was going to be the thing that would save me from the work that I really ultimately didn't enjoy. But I kept realizing that the more you climb up the ladder, the more work you're going to be expected to do. That on every arrival point of the money mountain, you never get to the summit and have everyone say, you've made it to the summit. Congratulations. You no longer have to do this work that you don't like to do. It's always an expectation of, because you've now made it to this summit, every summit that you reach, the people that are there waiting for you to summit, none of them say, congratulations, you've made it. You now no longer have to do this work. They all say, now that you've made it to this summit, we presume that you are competent at this work. And so we are going to now double your workload in order for you to make it to the next summit. After working at my dream job, Skadden Arps, they offered me to return to start my work there after law school. And I told them that I didn't want to do it. I decided finally that I wasn't going to chase the external rankings from US News and World Report or Bloomberg about how they rank where law firms sit. I was going to go to a less prestigious firm and do less prestigious work in a less prestigious city than New York City. And so I ultimately took a job at a big firm in Dallas called Vinson & Elkins. And I thought that going down the ladder, descending the ladder a little bit would make the work more sustainable for me in the long term. And so after my third year of law school, after passing the bar exam and moving my family to Dallas, I was ready to start my career at Vinson & Elkins, this new firm that I thought would be a more sustainable way for me to practice law. And the first assignment that I got at Vinson & Elkins was to help this life sciences firm go public. So we had to do all of the public filings in order to get them ready to register with the SEC in order to go public one day. In order to do all of that work at a big law firm, you have to do something that's called going to the printer. At the printer, you stay there all day and they have thousands of pages of public filing documents in Word documents that you're editing. And then you go to this special place where they print out the thousands of pages of documents and you look over every single page to make sure that the way that it was formatted in the Word document matches with the way that it gets printed out for the public filing. And so that's called going to the printer. So you spend all day, sometimes weeks on end, with a Word document and the printed file going, and you're looking side by side to make sure that every single line tracks. And the interesting thing was when I got assigned to go to the printer, all of the older associates were jealous that that I had gotten this assignment as a new associate because it's such an easy way to bill hours. And that's all that they could think about is how easy are the hours that I'm billing? How much work is it requiring for me to bill these hours? And so when I went to the printer, I had heard about how great it was, but it was the most boring thing that I had ever done. I couldn't imagine. I thought that I had completely wasted my life to do all of this work to learn from the best thinkers in law and to be at some of the most prestigious institutions, for then the final work product for the thing for me to spend my life doing is to go line item by line item, checking a Word document versus a PDF. I thought that it was the biggest waste of time that I could ever imagine. And it would have been okay had everyone told me, yo, the work that you're about to do, it can't be more boring than the thing. But for me to find it as boring as I did, in juxtaposition to everyone being jealous for the work that I was doing, I was like, it felt like I was the only one that saw that the emperor had no clothes. And it made me feel crazy. It made me feel like I was insane because I hated this work that everyone else thought that I should enjoy. And so the way that I was trying to cope with that reality was just working out, was just trying to exercise it. And so the morning of the panic attack, I was at the gym working out, and I got a text message from the lawyer that was the head of the mergers and acquisitions group. And the text message says, Raleigh, we have a new deal that's coming online. This is the type of deal that new associates kill for. I need you to get to the office as quickly as possible. And I felt like that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, that I was already dealing with this thing of, I hate this, I don't know how I can do this. And so to have a new assignment placed on my back when I couldn't handle the boredom of the work that I already had, that was the moment for me where it all started to come crashing down. And my heart started to race. I laid down, I heard Baby You're a Firework come over the loudspeaker, and I was like, I'm going to die right now. And what I realized, thought of starting a new assignment, well, I already couldn't cope with the reality of the boring work that I had already been assigned. That was what triggered the panic attack for me. And in that panic attack, well, I thought that I was dying. The thought that kept recurring in my head was, there's no one else here to save me. All of these people that I went to law school to try to please, whether it was my parents or my siblings or my spouse or my colleagues from law school, none of them are here right now in this moment helping me fend off this panic attack. This is the moment where I am alone, and I am alone with the reality of the decisions that I've made that have led me to this point. And it was this wake-up moment for me where I said, if at the end of the day I need to be accountable for my own decisions, I have to make my own decisions and I have to live with the consequences. I need to do something where I'm okay, where the consequences, even if I experience them all by myself, I at least picked a path that was my path and not trying to copy and paste the path that others thought was right for me. And so for the next 6 months, I tried a bunch of stuff. The first thing that I did was I got my real estate license, and I thought maybe I was going to become a realtor and do that on the side of practicing law. And then I tried to do a faceless Instagram account where I post motivational quotes on Instagram, and that never took off either. Then I tried to buy tax liens on distressed real estate, and that didn't work either. Then I tried to day trade, and I lost $5,000. Then I tried to start a senior care facility with one of my friends, and that also failed. And so after the panic attack, I then had this succession of failure after failure after failure after failure, trying all of these things as just a way to supplement my income and make more money, but none of that stuff was working. And that all changed when my brother sent me an article that said the unbelievably lucrative business of escape rooms. And that all changed for me when I learned about escape rooms. And there was something about the escape room business that felt different for me than all of those other things. And I think the reason was the escape room business felt like such a dumb idea that was so easy to do that I could totally wrap my head around, that I had this feeling of possibility. It felt like it was imminently possible to do. All of those other things, I wanted to do something that sounded sexy, that still sounded prestigious. I hadn't gotten this prestigious thing totally out of my system yet. And the escape room thing had no prestige associated with it whatsoever. In fact, when I told everybody about it, I felt embarrassed that it was going to be the thing that I was going to do. You know, there was nothing about it that seemed sexy. And so all of the other ideas had this sex appeal to them, whereas the escape room business just had this possibility appeal. It felt like it was something that I could do and I could figure it out on my own. And so when I texted my brother and my other buddy that was also trying to figure out how to leave his accounting job at KPMG, when I texted both of them and said, I think that this is something worth doing, and they both said that they were in and wanted to go for it, that was the moment where it felt like, if I don't take this opportunity, if they go and they do this without me and they don't bring me along, or they have success and I'm not along for the ride, I'll never be able to forgive myself. I'll never be able to look at myself in the mirror and not see a coward looking back because I didn't have the courage to go for this thing that I felt like like was the right idea. And I was just too big of a coward to actually go for it and do it. And so that's when I went from how do I find something that I can do on the side of my law firm job to if I do not burn the boats and do this, I can just never talk about being an entrepreneur. I should never talk about being a business owner. I should never talk about any of these things that I've been talking about for the past couple of years. I can't complain about my job anymore if I had this intuition that said I should leave it and I just don't have the courage to follow it. So that was the moment. Once I saw what the opportunity was and the opportunity felt possible to me and I had enthusiasm and excitement to do it, I felt like I had to choose between either killing my old life in order to start this new life as an entrepreneur, or kill the dream of a new life as an entrepreneur and just stick with this law firm thing and just shut up for the rest of my life about the idea of leaving and doing my own thing. And so that was the decision point. And I remember knowing that I was going to quit, and then it was just finding the time to do it. When was the right time to actually quit? When do my paychecks hit? Running PayPal with Elon Musk. And he said, the interesting thing about working at a big law firm is everyone on the outside wants to get in and everyone on the inside wants to get out. And so when he put his 2-week notice in, there was a partner that told him, I can't believe that someone finally figured out a way to get out of Alcatraz. And so I love that quote of all of these people that could really just walk out the door anytime they want to, but they are captivated by the golden handcuffs and by the security and the safety of a good paycheck. And so Alcatraz Escape Games became the name of my escape room business that I did in homage to that Peter Thiel quote about escaping Alcatraz. And so if you're watching this video and you feel stuck in what you're doing, but you don't know what the alternative is, my advice for you is to start paying attention to what drives your curiosity. And if you aren't curious about anything right now, then you need to start paying attention to the things that you do that don't drive your curiosity. Curiosity is something that requires space. It requires an openness for a new way of doing things. And so if you're living a hyper routinized life, if you're waking up at 4 a.m. and doing your cold plunge and running for 3 miles and then journaling and then watching a motivational video and you're cramming your life full of stuff, but you feel no curiosity for a new thing, then I would say start removing the things that don't drive curiosity in your life. Because ultimately the escape room business, I had this curiosity and that led me further and further away from the desire to practice law. And the space that was required in order for me to find the escape room thing was filled with a lot of failures, me trying a lot of stuff and realizing that I didn't like these other things. So if you feel stuck, one of the first things that you could do is remove the people, places, and things that you do in your life that don't drive curiosity and don't make you feel a feeling of enthusiasm. And that space will allow a new curiosity to flourish. That will be a good way for you to start building your escape path out. And now that I've been out of my big law career for almost a decade, my advice has changed a little bit. I no longer believe that it's for everyone, that everyone has to quit their job or become an entrepreneur. But for the people that feel stultified by the job that they have right now and just need the courage to go and do something else, my advice for you is to trust that intuitive pull to the new thing, and trust that intuitive pull to the new thing that will always require courage to follow. But the fear that you feel around it is the indication that you're on the right path. You're on a truer path for you, and do not let that fear dissuade you from going down that path. And if you've switched careers and you're on this new path, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear about what your experience was like going from the job that maybe you went to school for, spent a bunch of money on, and ultimately finding the courage to move on to a new thing. Otherwise, check out this video here where I talk about not just my path from quitting law to doing my own thing, but how I actually built that new thing into a $26 million business that changed my life. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.